You ready? We ready. Hey, everybody, this is Marcus. Welcome back to the Daily Biker Podcast presented to you by White Lightning Harley Davidson Studios. I am sitting here on the sales floor today. Again, I've got Lewis. Everybody, welcome Lewis back.
How's it going?
All right, so we're bringing you what I find to be an interesting show. Kind of one of the things that me and Lewis were talking about once before, and we usually end up going towards conversations of it whenever we're hanging out, is we start talking about the good old days. We start talking about the nostalgia and kind of the things we did when we were kids. I mean, Lewis has told me many of the stories of riding dirt bikes and street bikes and stuff like that. And I think everybody that's really into motorcycles has those stories. They have those memories that they can't seem to get away from. What do you think, Lewis?
Yeah, well, you talk about the definition of nostalgia, and just read it off here. It's a sentimental longing or wishful affection for the past, typically a period, place with happy personal associations. So a lot of the bikes that I have are bikes that I've either owned or rode in the past and hold a special place in my whole life experience, especially my riding experience.
Well, I mentioned, I think it was the first episode, I'd mentioned my scooter that I had, that little Honda 50. That thing was crazy, little two-stroke compression start. And I still remember, I tell people stories about it all the time. And, of course, people look at me and they'll laugh. They're like, oh, you had a scooter. There's a lot of guys I know that they started. I mean, the neighborhood that I grew up in, there was a lot of guys riding the Honda Elites and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the thing. A lot of guys started in that position.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, my first bike was I could never pin down the exact year model, but it was somewhere between an 80 and an 81 Honda 50. What I guess, I don't think they called it a Z50 back then, or maybe they did, but that was the bike that I learned to ride on.
Well, was it the little one with like the metal gas tank and stuff?
Yeah,
like
it was metal gas
tank.
So
I think that was the Z50. Was it not the same thing that we saw in Panama? That guy was riding.
Very, very similar. I don't know that there was at the time.
I know it sounds weird referring to a Honda as a Z50.
Yeah, I don't know at the time what year model they put the Z on it. That one could have been a Z50. All I remember was, it didn't have an indication of Z anywhere on the seat or on the plastics or on the tins. It's just, it was a Honda 50, and the big old fat tires, 3-speed. I can still go to the place where I learned to ride that bike today, and I remember it was a little yard, and basically made a circle track, I guess you would call it, in this yard, and would ride that thing from sun up to sundown, and really, polish my skills for, later on in riding. Nothing in the world could take me off that bike. And, talking about the topic today about nostalgia, I would love to have one today. I would love to have one just in the same color.
Well, I think some of those things are collector's items.
Well, the guys that are my age and older, that was their first bike. They're not making any more 1970, 1980 motorcycles, and that, that's the reason why. That's the reason why a lot of these things are going up in value. And finding one, you could probably find one of your year model choice, no problem. But you're going to put a lot of money into that thing to getting it into the quality that you would want, even if you didn't plan on riding it, because you're 200 pounds.
Well, I
mean,
trying to restore it though, that's kind of one of those things. Can you even get the parts for it? I know that scooter that I had, the people that do collect them, because there is a group of collectors out there in the world. I don't know where you'd get parts unless you were manufacturing your own parts for it. Having parts,
they were
specifically made.
They were really simple. As far as engine internals, things like that, I don't know if you could cross-reference those parts for something else. I have no idea. Gas tanks, things like that. I'm sure eBay would be able to help out a lot, but there probably is a limited number of parts for them. But I would love to have one again. I mean, that's where it all started for me and my whole experience.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things when I think of the nostalgia and the motorcycles, the most stand out memory that I have that comes to mind of when I was a kid was chips. I know I'd mentioned that once before, but I mean, chips. I cannot say it enough. That was really what made me look at motorcycles and pay attention to motorcycles and start admiring those things. I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a police officer just so I could ride motorcycles all day. So it was really kind of a standout memory for me now. And whenever I get the chance to whether catch it on, I think it's that Me TV or whatever it is, those types of things, it's like, I'll sit there and watch it all day long just because it brings back that childhood memories of the motorcycling. But it's kind of one of those things. I didn't grow up around motorcycles as much as you did. I know when I was younger, my dad had I think it was a 1983, but it was a Yamaha 400. And I can't honestly remember it ever running my entire childhood. It sat in the garage. I know it did run some. He ended up selling it to a friend of my brother's who actually got it running and rode it around and stuff. But I remember people in the neighborhood having motorcycles. There was someone, and I can't remember who it was. I don't remember if it was an uncle or just a friend of the family or somebody. I remember him coming over and plopping me on the gas tank and taking me for a ride around the neighborhood. Those types of memories, though, those are those moments that you'll never forget. They stand out.
Oh, yeah. I remember going back to the chips deal. There was a guy in my neighborhood that had he had a KZ 1000, and it was the I think it was called the KZ 1000. But anyway, it was the touring model, had the fairing and everything on it. It's basically what the police bikes were, just without all the lights and sirens. But popped me on the gas tank when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, go around the neighborhood there where my grandparents lived. And I remember, and my grandmother still tells this story, I would be sitting on the tank, so I had full access to the handlebars, and it had this horn on it that was just blaringly obnoxious and loud. And as we were riding, sat there and just lay down on that horn. I'm surprised I didn't. I mean, all the way around the block, laying down on that horn, and he just kind of let me roll with it, But it was a lot of good memories. Talking about good memories, so going kind of into my list here, started out with my first bike. As far as just motorcycles in general, the Honda 50. One that sticks out to me, and I still have pictures of this bike, which is what I love about it. 1989 RM80.
Okay.
So
a little two-stroke dirt bike.
It was a two-stroke dirt bike. It was. I'd had maybe like an XR80 and an XR100.
Yeah. In
between them, but the 1989 RM80 was my first race bike, and coming off of an XR100. I didn't know any better, but when I first saw the bike, I was like, okay, this looks a lot like the guys I see on TV racing. Okay, this is definitely, it looks the part of a supercross bike or a motocross bike. But I remember the 80cc part made me kind of think I was going down.
Yeah, well, now let me ask you on that. I mean, the XR100, was that not also a two-stroke? Mm-mm. So it was a four-stroke?
All the XR lines were four-stroke trail bikes.
Okay. Oh, I'm thinking CR.
CR,
so CR was their two-stroke. I wasn't sure if it was maybe a two-stroke trail bike and you were going to more of a faster motocross-style motorcycle?
I'd come off the trail bikes because we had made the decision we were going to get into actual racing. Up to this point, we were just doing non-competition, riding in the woods. We had a little track that we had kind of built. It was basically a circle track with jumps kind of at random in certain places. So this was my first stab at a race bike and first ever on a two-stroke. And the learning, it was like learning. I remember I got frustrated with it because it was the way you ride this motorcycle is completely different to the way you ride a 4-stroke, and it was very, very unforgiving. I remember the first lap that I did around our track. I was kind of letting it load up a little bit. The starting to foul the plug, and my dad pulled me over. He's like, "Look, you're going to have to wind this thing out," because prior to then, it's like, "Hey, don't wind this thing up too much. You're going to blow it up." Now it's like, try to blow it up. You won't do it. And I remember when that first time I just cleared the bike out, smoke like a tar kettle, finally got it cleared up, and then hit it, and that front tire immediately come up. Immediately. And I was like, wow, the way the power is delivered on this, that it took me months to figure that bike out. But once I got it figured out, it's a whole different way of riding.
So how old were you when this was going on?
Oh, God. I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say 10, maybe, 11, maybe.
So you weren't a 5 or 6 year old prodigy riding one of those bikes. I mean, I've seen them out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and once I finally figured out this bike, and going into another one on my list that's nostalgia for me, my uncle, that was a avid motorcycle rider still to this day, had a 1991 CR250. Now, everybody knows the 1991 CR250 because at the time, a lot of people hated the graphics of it. It had the more orange graphics and white, and it had the tiger stripes on the seat. But this bike was what a lot of people wanted because at the time, the dream team for Honda, I want to say Roger DeCoster was managing the motocross, supercross team Honda at the time, and you had Bailey and Stanton, McGrath is coming up at this point, and they were dominating the competition.
Right.
And they were truly fast bikes. So I got to ride that bike during this time as well, and so started off.
But you're still 10?
Yes. So my uncle's on the back, and I'm on the front.
Right.
And he's letting me do the controls and everything. He gets us started because, of course, my legs are nowhere near long enough. And I remember we made a couple of laps, and then all of a sudden I felt the bike, it felt like it got 10 feet higher. That was a result of my uncle letting the bike go from between his legs and then letting me go off into the distance.
So he jumped off the bike.
He jumped off the bike. So here I am. I mean, I'm like on stilts. I feel like one of those guys that's riding like the old-timey, enormous big wheel bicycles. And the power on it, I mean, I barely could keep the spark plug from fouling because it was such a powerful bike, and that bike didn't even know anybody was on it.
Yeah.
Because I'm so light.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be a crazy experience. I know before I got my scooter, there was a guy in the neighborhood that used to, not professionally, but he did race dirt bikes, and he had a couple Kawasaki 125 two-strokes. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of my first taste of the dirt bike world. I'd never rode a dirt bike. I had the basics of how to shift gears and all that stuff. And I mean,
that's a heck of a bike to learn
fit on that bike.
That's a heck of a bike to learn on because that's not necessarily a forgiving bike either.
He let me do it. I mean, it was a good time. I know it turned some heads when my parents found out that I was out riding a dirt bike that I shouldn't have been on.
They're rippers. Those two strokes now are becoming a thing of the past, and in the 80s and the early 90s, up until probably the mid 90s, these bikes they weren't easy to ride. They had a ton of power. They were just coming into what we know as the modern motocross bike today, and it would wear you out. The vibration, the neck wobble on deceleration, just having to stay on top and manage the engine as you're going around the track, trying to keep your timing and everything. It was a lot to handle. Yeah,
I know. Talking about the motocross, and of course going back to the vintage, down at Barber Motorsports Park every October they have their vintage festival, and they do a vintage hair scramble. Mm. And I know I've talked to some of those guys, and I've sat on a couple of those guys' bikes and stuff, and some of these I'm like, I don't know. I mean, we're talking about steel frame,
Oh yeah,
aluminum gas tanks, and
very
it's like,
limited suspension.
yeah, these things are heavy, and I'm like, I don't see how that was a dirt bike.
I know, but back then, I mean, they looked at. I mean, that was top of the line, cutting edge technology.
Well, I mean, and that goes kind of back to the chips thing, because when they weren't, there were so many episodes where when they weren't on the road working on their motorcycles, they would have those special episodes where they were out on their dirt bikes, because they both rode dirt bikes and everything. And
oh yeah, it's.
I think that's the show that you definitely couldn't get away from if you were a motorcycle fan.
Oh, you really couldn't. You really couldn't. So, kind of going through my list, kind of segueing into street bikes. So, my first street bike, I got my first street bike. I think I was, let's see, I think I was definitely not driving. So, I'm going to guess probably around 14 or 15. I have yet, that I can remember, see another bike like this make and model. But 1982 CM 400.
See, Honda CM?
Honda CM 400.
So, let's see. Okay, I think a CX was the side-mounted motor.
I can't remember.
I think that's a CX. What's exactly is the CM? What was the special about that?
And that I don't really know. A lot of those bikes from the 70s and 80s, when you start talking about Hondas, a lot of them look very much alike.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell I mean, to me, the CM 400 of its time looked very similar to the Goldwing of its time.
Yeah.
But I remember it was just, we were talking about buying a street bike. My dad was talking about buying me a street bike. And of course, at that time, I'm thinking, sport bike and all this stuff that's cool. And that definitely wasn't going to happen. But we came across, not too far from where I live today, sitting on the side of the road in a guy's yard, this bike. Looked like it needed a little bit of work. It was definitely old. Been sitting there for a few days. So we wheeled in there and got a number. And a couple weeks later, he surprised me with it, I think for a maybe birthday or something like that. And so learning how to ride again, coming off of, I still had my dirt bike, but coming off of that and getting on a full-fledged street bike now, heavy. That bike was, for me, it was kind of tall. It was like learning to ride again. But it was my first little sample of freedom. Now I can take off, go into town if I want to. Absolutely illegal, no insurance, tags, or license, and underage. But cruising around the back roads in the neighborhood, things like that. I mean, it was great. Didn't have a whole lot of power, and it didn't handle. It didn't stop very good like all those bikes at the time. So it was definitely a good segue into the street bike world.
Well, I guess too, where you were raised at though, you could probably tend to get away with that type of stuff a little bit more. I know in the neighborhood that I grew up in, it was nothing to see a police car chasing somebody on a four-wheeler or a dirt bike or a scooter going down the road. Yeah,
and it was weird. So the track that I rode at was right across the street from a group of rental properties that my granddad owned. So he had his shop there. We kept the motorcycles. So my dad, my uncle, my granddad, they could all kind of keep an eye on us as we're burning laps right there. And in this town, it was, very limited traffic, tons of back roads. Some of them were hardly even paved. So I was really lucky. I had a lot of leeway on what I could get away with versus guys that live, more into, the cities in Hamilton County, so.
I mean, yeah, I was raised, it was considered the country at one point in time, but now it's kind of like, the more or less in the middle of everything.
Yeah. And, it was funny. There were several times where we would pass a county cop. Marion County cop would just so happen to be in this little town of Sequatchie, not to be confused with Sequatchie County for you guys that know where I'm talking about. But, burning up the roads on the neighborhoods on the dirt bikes, going to and from my grandmother's house, or from the track to my grandmother's house, and every now and again you'd pass a cop, and you would tense up. You're like, oh, I'm going to jail. I mean, of course, we're 8, 10, 12 years old. This is it. So of course we would run.
Yeah.
And
they never even pulled out behind you.
Oh, every time they would pull out.
Oh, did they pull out?
Absolutely every time. Oh, yeah. And what was funny, but looking back now,
I was thinking in that town that you'd cruise past and go, oh, that's just Lewis.
Oh, no. I mean, these guys, these cops, they knew exactly who I was. They knew exactly who my cousin was. They knew exactly where I lived because they probably went to high school with my parents.
Yeah.
So they knew who or what. I honestly think they were doing it just to see exactly how we would react, So me and my cousin that was a little bit younger than me, I remember one in particular when I really, really thought I was done, like this is it. I'm going to jail. I'm gonna get in trouble. A state trooper just happened to be going down the back road, and I'm going back to my grandmother's house. And I thought, oh no! So I veered off on this other back road that runs parallel to the one he was on. Blue lights hit. I took off up Sequatchie Mountain Road, and when I got going up the mountain road there, I can access. I jumped the ditch and I would go into my grandmother's backyard. And what I did was, as soon as I hit that road, I jumped the ditch, and when I got on their property, I shut my bike off.
Yeah.
And I waited, and I could see through the trees down the bottom of the hill. There's my cousin on his dirt bike with a state trooper behind him at the bottom of the driveway. And I thought, oh man! I said, well, he's just going to have to take this one. So I'm not. I waited up there for 30 minutes.
Now what do you do if you see a cop?
Oh, I absolutely pull over. Yeah. I've learned that the leniency on that is not so much anymore when you're
it was
old enough to know better.
It was probably a little bit easier in the early 90s when you were a kid doing that type of stuff, especially out in the country.
Yeah. Well, and especially, too, when I think the police officers at the time, like I said, probably went to school with my parents. They knew who we were, and they were probably having fun just messing with us.
So what you were saying was they weren't even chasing you. They were just so happened to see you drive by, and they were already headed back to your house. Well, they knew where you lived.
They knew exactly. Well, no, and in this particular, with the state trooper, of course, he doesn't know me from anybody else. My cousin is on a KX 60.
Yeah.
I'm on either a KX80 at this point or that RM that I was talking about. I can't remember. I think it was the KX80 that I had. So I take off. My cousin does. He freezes. He stops. So I leave him there. I'm thinking he's behind me until I jump the ditch, shut my bike off, and I realize he's not around. And then about 45 seconds to a minute later, I see him pull up. My dad walks out there to the cop car, and they're talking. The state trooper never even gets out of his car, but I sit there on that hill until that state trooper is gone, and then I coast my bike down the hill up to the driveway, and of course, my grandfather, my grandmother, my uncle, and my dad are all sitting there laughing, like, "Well, guess you left your little cousin out here for dead, didn't you?" I was like, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Well, I know who to rat out next time I get pulled over. It was Lewis Bell. Mm-hmm. It was him. He was the one. Yeah, I mean, those memories are always something that can definitely bring a tear to your eye. Unfortunately, I think a lot of kids these days aren't getting the opportunity to make those memories. I know sales are kind of down. I think coming out with those the small electric, like Harley's came out with the small electric bicycles and stuff like that. I think those definitely help and definitely push a new generation towards those things. A couple years ago, one of my brothers his two sons bought him little Honda CRF dirt bikes, and it gives the opportunity to make those memories. I mean, we don't have the shows on TV now to go, oh yeah, somebody's riding a bike. But you remember what was that show with Lorenzo Lamas? The Renegade.
I don't think I remember that.
Yeah, Renegade. It was just kind of like an action TV show, and he kind of just traveled around, if I'm recalling it correctly, but he would kind of travel around and do his thing, but he rode a motorcycle. I mean, the show's been going so long that I can't tell you here nor there what type of motorcycle it was or any of those stuff, but
Right.
I remember those things, and it's like we were talking earlier, we getting a little game set up that we're going to start doing on the shows and stuff, and we were talking about the Terminator Fat Boy.
Yeah.
So those types of memories, whenever I think about, okay, seeing that Terminator Fat Boy, seeing him jump off of the side of the hill into the ditch and everything on that thing, I don't picture it now as me now. I picture it as me as a little kid going, that's so cool.
Oh yeah. And as me as a kid coming off, being involved in motocross, I'm thinking at the time, that's the one Harley that you could actually jump. I seen it. Arnold did it. He jumped it right off that bridge. That one will actually do it. That would be a cool Harley to have.
Yeah. Did you rush out and buy one though?
No, not at that time.
I mean, those bikes are starting to kind of get up to be a valuable motorcycle too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, getting in, I mean, I wanted a motorcycle for years, to the point of where I positioned myself into the motorcycle community and working at dealerships and stuff. Before I could even ride, I was so involved and so wanting those motorcycles. I don't have as long of a storied past with my collection. I mean, like we talked once before, you started riding when you were 5.
Yeah.
With the pushing from your parents.
Yeah.
To kind of be in that world, where for me it was, I had to buy my first motorcycle after I moved out of my parents' house. So I mean, I got married, went on my honeymoon, and come back from the honeymoon the next weekend, bought my first motorcycle. You got a little list there from your history. What else you got on your list? Where'd you go to after that CM?
So after the CM, kind of in a way went down, but went up. I definitely got a better motorcycle. It was a 1986 Honda Rebel 250, and
Is that the one you were talking about? You rode to McKaysville on that one time?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, no license, no registration, not old enough.
That's a ride on a 250. I just want to
we
put
did that
out there.
whole loop. My dad was on the Road King. We were like with 5 or 6 other people. I still remember that to this day. That was so much fun. And the first time, because when I was riding, I wouldn't go out of my town, and I was very I avoided the main roads.
Yeah.
It was a lot of back roads. So
Right.
anywhere where I knew the city or the county police would be, I kind of try to avoid. And
Right.
all of a sudden, we just take off one day. Had no idea where we were going, and we left Sequatchie and take back roads all the way to around into Chattanooga, then through Ellijay. I'm sorry, through Ocoee. Yeah, because we went through Cleveland, Ocoee, McKaysville, and then back around. Came back home through went across Fort Mountain on a Honda Rebel, and back to my dad's.
Up that mountain.
Back to my dad's house in Ottawa, and that was an awesome ride. And what's funny is now circling back, years later, that's one of my favorite rides still to this day. And the first time I ever did it was on an old Honda Rebel.
Yeah.
But kind of jumping up from that was the first big jump that I did in the street bikes after the Honda Rebel. Was a VF 700 Sabre, 1985 700 Sabre, and I didn't realize how cool that bike was. So that bike, we bought it.
Is that a V4? Did they do
No, it was a liquid cooled V twin, if I remember correctly.
Honda made like a V4, but I don't know if it was a Sabre or...
I don't think it was the Sabre. So the whole idea behind this motorcycle,
Yeah.
they made it for 2 years. I think they only made this bike for 2 years.
Okay.
Kind of like they did with the Nighthawk 550, which was
Right.
a bike my dad had.
Right.
So this bike was actually the tariff buster. It was the answer to Reagan's tariff on Japanese motorcycles that were competing against Harley. So
Okay.
they only made this bike for 2 years because I think the tariff only lasted for so long, and then they really didn't have a need for it anymore. And the bike ended up turning in. It went from the VF45 to the VF65, which was an 1100cc bike. But
Right.
this bike in particular, I would love to have it again. If I find one in decent shape, I'm gonna buy it. But very limited bike, but it was so cool. It was a motorcycle that, of course, it was fast for anything I'd have been on. I mean,
Right.
It was very, very fast, and it did not handle well. It did not stop well, but it was the first time that I'd had anything on the street, anyways, that had any power, and that's when I started really kind of branching out, going on, doing some rides, maybe, within the county, but, from city to city. It definitely had enough power to where I could do whatever I wanted to do with it. Put a few girls on the back of it, so it was cool.
Thought you were the big man.
Yeah, and, the way it worked out, so I had that bike when I was about 15, and so, of course, when I got 16, I got a car.
Right.
So that opens up a whole new, experience. So I let this bike go, and I just didn't ride it. Didn't really have anything set for probably 2 years.
Right.
And I had my license, and I was wanting to drive. And I kind of wish, if I had it to go back, I would have kept that bike and actually used it, rode it to school.
Now, when you were in school, was there anybody that rode?
There was one
two
guy.
schools?
So my freshman year, there was one guy that had a R6 that
Yeah.
rode to school.
Yeah.
I can't even remember this guy's name. I don't even know if he finished out the whole school year with us, but I remember there was one guy that rode an R6, and then a buddy of mine that had never had a motorcycle before, my sophomore year, he just decided he wanted a motorcycle, and he had talked to me about bikes because he knew that I'd had plenty before, and
Right.
so he went with his dad to the Yamaha shop in town, and of course none of them knew anything about motorcycles. So
Talked his dad into buying an R6.
R1. So he didn't buy R1, but all they see is numbers.
Right.
They know 1 is the lowest and 6 is the highest. All right, so they go in and they're looking, and it was
That's how people get hurt.
it was a Yamaha dealership and a Kawasaki dealership. So they go in and they're looking around at prices. His dad, of course, is looking. He's a little bit apprehensive about buying his son a street bike. So they're looking at this R1, and they're like, okay, well, this one might be good. And of course, my buddy Randy, I think he knows. He's not saying anything. He's just going to see how this plays out. So they look at the R1, they see the price tag on it, and his dad's like, I don't know about that. And the salesman kind of is catching on to what's going on here. He's like, well, I tell you what, let's go over and look at this Kawasaki Ninja 250. So he sits on it and everything, sees the price tag on that, and he's like, okay, well, that's like $2,800. That's a lot better than 10 grand or whatever it was at the time. So I remember I'm at home taking a nap, get a phone call. It's my buddy Randy. He goes, hey, man, we bought a motorcycle. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, man, we bought a motorcycle. I said, well, what'd you buy? And he said, well, we were looking at this R1. And I thought, no way. He doesn't know how to ride a motorcycle.
Right.
So story goes on, and he tells me, yeah, we got this Ninja 250. I'm like, all right, cool. And he goes, so if we come pick you up, can you ride it home for me? Sure. So I go and get the motorcycle and everything. They've done the paperwork for it, so I take off, ride it back to his house, and we do a little bit of tutorial there, a little bit of showing him, and he takes off to it. But I think he might have had a mini bike or something before then.
Yeah, had some sort of understanding.
Yeah, but it sparked my motivation to go get my motorcycle now. So I go get my motorcycle out of the garage, and we kind of start riding together. And it was, I haven't thought about this in years till just now, but I remember we're riding and everything. We go to some girl's house because we thought we were cool. We had our motorcycles and everything, talked to her for a little bit. And when we leave, we come back home, and he has not figured out that street tires do not do well on grass, whether it's dry or wet. So I pull up in his driveway and stop. Well, he comes up from behind me, and his parents are sitting on the porch. He just drives straight through the front yard, and I mean, he goes to the front yard, and as soon as he touches that brake, whack, it goes down. And doesn't really hurt anything. Kind of hurts, bust the blinkers and all that stuff, but no big deal. But he learned a valuable lesson that day, and I still remember laughing as I'm walking up to him and helping him pick his bike up and everything. It's definitely good memories.
Yeah, those are the great ones. I remember at my school, I remember 2 motorcycles. There was a friend of mine that actually lived directly behind me in the neighborhood, had a Rebel. His name was Jacob. And then he would ride it to school some. And then there was another guy named Danny that had a little Ninja, and I think it was a 250. He didn't ride it to school as much as Jacob would ride his. And realistically, I mean, if you think about the time of year that school is and how much you might be kind of into motorcycles, Jacob's motorcycle for all of probably 3-4 months out of the year saw it come into the schoolyard and maybe 15 times, 20 times. So, but I remember Jacob's motorcycle a lot more simply. Like I said, he lived behind me, and we used to strap up the rollerblades. He'd drag us around the neighborhood behind his motorcycle. I mean, that was, sorry, Mom and Dad, if you're listening, but I can tell you what 60 miles an hour on a pair of skates feels like.
Oh, yeah.
But those were definitely interesting times, especially thinking about it. You kind of look back and go, man, how did I survive? And that's like your buddy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure he thinks back, man, if I'd got an R1, I'd been dead.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Well, talking about, this wasn't necessarily a near-death experience because it was definitely in a controlled environment, but I remember the first sport bike that I ever rode. So while I have my 700, my stepdad at the time, we're going to ride together because he rides. So he had I'm trying to find the exact year. It was between a 1990 and a 1992 GSXR 1100. It was one of the first when the GSXRs became water-cooled. I know his was a water-cooled motor. So sometime in the 80s when they first came out with the GSXR, I know they were air-cooled. There were inline fours. This one I know was water-cooled. It had it had racing plastics, custom paint job. It had PM wheels. It had Vanson Hines exhaust, I want to say, on it. But anyways.
So so you went into the street bikes. You kind of got some street bike territory. Where'd you go from the next bike? What's your next bike on your list that you had?
The next bikes that I had. So let's see. After the VF 700, I kind of got out of riding because I had the cars and everything. So that was all new, and kind of got out of motorcycles for a pretty good while. I still had I'd had a CR 125. It was a 93 model, and I rode it a little bit here and there, probably really definitely not as much as I should have, or looking back on it now, wish I had. But I had that one for a while, kept it for probably a couple of years, and then while I was still in high school, probably my junior year, I'm going to say, sold it just because I wasn't using it. But that was kind of the last for my motorcycle anyways. Owning a motorcycle, that was it. After I had my CR 125, got out of it, got into cars, and it was probably, let's see, I graduated, when I sold that bike, I had no motorcycles from like 2005 to getting into probably 2000, let's see, when I started riding again, like really avidly riding, was probably 2015. We've been into boats and other things like that. So motorcycles, really had no interest in it. Occasionally I would ride one of my friends' motorcycles that just never got ridden at all. Like occasionally I'd get a wild hair and maybe go to, a few miles or whatever, but that was about it. Getting into riding, again, I didn't even buy a motorcycle. My dad still had his 2002 Road King.
Yeah.
And it had been sitting in the garage, and he rode it just enough to keep it running without any issues. So
now that's the bike I know. That's the bike
Yeah.
you were riding when we
right.
first met.
And that's going to be, 2015, 2016, somewhere around in that area.
Maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, I mean, you can base it off of Chloe, because first time I met you was at her birthday party, and you were on that Road King.
Yeah. So that was around the same year we started riding, I think,
Okay.
was that. So, and my wife and I, she wasn't my wife at the time, but when we started riding, I just kind of got a wild hair. I'd sold my boat, and I was kind of getting out of that. I thought, man, I'm starting to see motorcycles. I kind of sparked my interest, and actually it was what sparked my interest. I can remember the day that I started getting the interest in riding is when I seen Pete at Blue Ribbons Sportster setting out in front of his shop.
The one with the solid wheels on it?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it had the solid wheels at the time, but it doesn't look anything like it does now. But it looked more like the 750 dirt track
Yeah.
theme it had going on.
Yeah.
And I remember, I thought, man, that would be cool.
That flat tracker look too.
So I started getting this kind of urge to get back into motorcycles again, and I remember seeing that kind of spark my interest a little bit. So, anyways, getting into I just told my dad, I said, hey, if you don't mind, I'm going for a ride on Road King. Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then I just kept it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And just didn't give it back.
Well, I know. That's kind of when we met, and when we met, for the most part, it was stock. I think it had exhaust on it.
Yeah, it had the fishtail exhaust, and that was a seat, and that was pretty much it.
And then we got bars put on that thing.
Yeah, what did we put on that, 12 or 13?
I think we went with the 13-inch bar.
Yeah, whatever we could do without stretching the cables, I think is what we did on that. But
I think we did all new cables on your
okay.
Road King. Yeah, when we did bars on your street glide for your
That's right, yeah.
wedding present, we went at a point where we didn't have to run new cables or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, rode that Road King. Like I said, I took it. So, yeah, I'm just going to go for a ride today. And 2 years later, after I got my street glide, he finally came and picked it up.
Yeah.
And
So I mean, now we're up to date with the street glide. So out of that, I mean, obviously, I know you'd probably like to have all of those motorcycles back.
oh, absolutely.
I mean, if
absolutely.
you could, but if you had to pick one, if you could only have one. Now, I know you're not going to say the Road King, because you can still.
Yeah.
Your dad still has the Road King.
If I was going to buy one, honestly, it wouldn't even been my bike. It would be the CR, that 1991 CR250.
Yeah.
Just because, and what's funny is something I didn't mention.
Russell's bike?
That was Russell's bike. One thing I didn't mention about that bike is he had that bike. He bought it brand new.
Yeah.
So while we're still on the 50s, I'm still on the 50. I see him. He gets his bike out. We go on a ride or something. And I remember being scared of that bike when he would fire it up or when I'd hear it coming because of the loud noise and everything. And I remember almost being in tears when I would see it roll out of the garage because of that sound or whatever, and it would hit you in the chest, that bing, bing, bing,
Yeah.
It had that particular bike, it had I know that was a pretty notable engine that they had in that bike, and it just had this thump for a two-stroke and this winding sound that it's hard to explain, but I remember being terrified of that motorcycle, not to mention getting on it. But there was a progression. I get more comfortable with motorcycles, and next thing you know, before I could even hop on this motorcycle, I'm riding it.
Yeah.
And that was definitely, everybody has, if you're lucky, I'm sure you have several moments in your life that you can still remember to this day. Positive moments that you can still remember to this day exactly how it played out, the feeling and everything. That, to me, is one of those feelings that I can still remember exactly what it looked like, where I was, what it felt like, when I
Yeah.
rode that motorcycle.
Yeah,
for the
see,
first
that's
time.
like, for me, I mean, like I said, within the past 10 years, I've only been through 4 street bikes. Started with a 2005 Katana 600. Had it for a couple years, traded in. I was at the Honda shop, so I found a deal, still have a deal, with the 599. While in ownership of the 599, I kind of took a maintenance responsibility on the RC51 for a little while, like you've done with that with FXR and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then I got back to a situation where I was back on the 599, was ready to get completely different direction, so deluxe and then deluxe into street glide. I still miss my deluxe. I wish I had
Yeah.
my deluxe very much. But to be honest, out of the 3 bikes that I previously owned, if I could have one just to have one in my garage, as slow and as heavy as the motorcycle was, it would have been that Katana, because
Yeah.
it brings back the memories, the first street bike and all that other stuff. But it was you couldn't kill it. It was indestructible. I mean, it's like the old Go Devil Jeeps. You couldn't kill it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it just kept going.
They were those katanas. I remember those katanas were so they were so popular when they first came out with people, because they were an entry level bike and people could actually afford them. The insurance wasn't so
Well, I mean,
awful.
so the bike was carbureted, and it sucked during the wintertime trying to get it warmed up, get it started. But like I said, I mean, it always ran. I never had an issue with it.
Yeah.
It started. I mean, everything on the bike was mechanical or analog, full analog gauges, full mechanical,
Yep.
carbureted motorcycle.
Yep.
There wasn't much to the bike.
Well, and I wonder too with those katanas, because they were a lot of people's first dip into either motorcycles or sport bikes. I wonder if those katanas are going to start kind of creeping up in value because people want their old bike
Well,
back.
so saying that, if you notice, Suzuki brought back the Katana.
Oh, really?
But they went retro. They went full retro because, the Katana, when it started, that was their sport bike.
Yeah.
I mean, pre-GSXR, that was their sport bike.
Right.
And that's what they've done. They've went back to that early 80s era Katana, and they brought it back. And it's a bigger bike, too. I think it's like a 1,000 or 1,100 or something like that. But it's definitely, I mean, yeah, that nostalgia aspect of them. I mean, mine was I called it the Fat Cat. It was the Moon Eye style headlight series, like you see most every Katana going down the road. And like I said, I miss my deluxe. I miss it so bad. But if I just have to pick one from history, instead of me having 2 Harleys, I'd like to go back to that memory. First motorcycle. And I loved that thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a treasured deal. I stripped it of every decal that it had. I custom made a taillight system for it because nobody made anything. So I custom made a taillight system. So it was a no license plate, integrated blinker system and everything.
Yeah.
Did a Two Brothers exhaust on it, custom seat. Yeah.
Those
Too much money in a Katana.
Well, but it's yours.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Well, but the thing was, I bought the bike. We're talking 2009. I bought the bike for $3,500. That bike is still if that bike is out there and still in good shape, it's still a $2,500 to $3,000 bike.
Yeah.
It's kind of hit its bottom.
Well, and that's the thing with those bikes. If you find one in good shape, because a lot of people get them, it's their first bike, or they get it used because they were a dime a dozen, so they didn't really take care of them. A lot of them got crashed because they not the most experienced riders were riding them.
Yeah.
But much like any of the dirt bikes that I have on my list,
Yeah.
or the CM400 or the VF700, if you can find one of those in good shape, because they did hit a bottom.
Yeah.
And they weren't a desirable bike. And
Yeah.
some of them weren't even desirable bikes when they were new. But when somebody such as myself or you or whoever, when they's like, oh, there's a nostalgia there with that particular motorcycle in that color and that year model, all of a sudden now this value starts coming up because there's not a whole lot to pick from.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with the 90 model GSXR 1100 that I rode. I would love to find one of those early 90 model, early 90 models, just or even in the late 80s, whatever the air cooled when they went from air cooled to water cooled, that water cooled GSXR 1100, the two headlights in the front, the kind of a bubble fairing. To me, those bikes look better than anything that look brand new today. Probably with the exception of maybe like a 2001 R1, which or not 2001, is 1998 to about 2001.
Yeah,
Blue
well,
and white
I think
R1.
I love that motorcycle. I think it actually was up until like 2003. I think 01 there was a slight variation they did. I mean, it just slight change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Blinkers a little bit different, seat maybe a little bit different, but yeah, that body style bike. It's small enough that it has that sporty look to it, and it's lightweight, but there's enough meat to its bones that it doesn't look like anything lightweight. So we're going to move on here. We're going to talk about. Go ahead and hand me that bag. Hey, Bill, you want to have a seat with us? Yeah, we're about to finish up here. So we're going to play a game. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a game called Chop, Ride, Sell. So point of this is I got a bag here, and you're going to pull out 3 pieces of paper. All right?
All right.
So one of these bikes, you have to not necessarily chop it, but customize it. One of them, you can't touch it. Only thing you can do is ride it. And one of them you're going to sell. So 3 random motorcycles. You get your 3 slips. Let me pull out 3 here. Let me get 1, 2, and 3. All right, I'll let you go ahead. What are your 3 bikes that you got?
Okay, so my first one here is the Indian FTR 1200. I have a Road King.
All right.
And then I have the Honda Fireblade. Okay, so what am I going to do here? Okay,
what you going to chop?
So what am I going to chop? I'm definitely going to chop the Road King.
Okay, so we're customizing the Road King.
We're going to customize it. We're probably going to go performance bagger on that one. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change my mind on that immediately. I'm going to go Cholo style.
Okay, so we're going to Cholo out the Road King.
I'm going to Cholo out the Road King. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
21
spoke, Carlini Apes. I'm going to have a pretty substantial sound system. And also, we're going to do air ride on the back and, just chrome everywhere, crazy paint job, something that's just really, really, it looks loud and it sounds loud.
Yeah, okay. So what you doing next?
Okay, so
what you riding? Let's go with that.
What are we riding?
I mean, your options are ride and sell. I mean, you got 2 pretty good bikes left. What'd you have? The FTR and the Fireblade. I'm
probably, just because, not that this would be a very desirable bike, the Honda Fireblade. I do know, or at least it's my impression, that they are still bringing some money.
Yeah.
They're not exactly cheap. So I'm going to sell this bike so that I can fix up my Road King.
Okay, so you're going to use the money from the Fireblade to build the Road King.
And then I'm going to ride the FTR 1200.
Yeah.
Because it looks cool, and I've never ridden one.
So that FTR, I mean, even if you were having to rock a backpack, dude, I think that thing, I mean, you talk about a commuter or an in-town brawler, or even taking it up to the Dragon and stuff.
Oh yeah, a wheelie machine, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I've never rode one. I can't personally speak, but it has that appeal to it that it's just going to...
It looks like it would be a lot of fun. It also looks like it would incur a lot of medical bills too, so...
Yeah, so, all right, so let's see here. My 3, I've got the new Goldwing.
All right.
I've got a Donna. Ooh. Oh, and I've got a KZ 1000. All right. So, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead... I'm going to say the KZ is fun, and as much as I would love to build, the vintage engine with all new sport bike components and do a super cool cafe racer, I'm going to go ahead and sell that KZ. I think right now they're at a price point where I can still make some money, especially if it's maybe the KZP, maybe it's the police bike in good condition, which they kept making after the civilian bikes. They kept making the police version. So I'm gonna sell that KZ. It's not going to take me a whole lot of money to take that Dyna, and I'm going to do just like everybody else does. I'm going to roll T-bars. I'm going to throw maybe some of the T-Sport style bags. There's a company, and I know Sean's going to whoop my butt when he finds out that I can't remember what the name of that company is that's making the saddlebags, but I think I'm going to build me out my Dyna. That's going to be my chop bike, and then the new Goldwing. Okay, I think that new Goldwing, it's a fantastic motorcycle. This is kind of one of those things, people are putting 3 bikes in front of me, and I'm not throwing out any money on that Goldwing. Yeah, I'm going to buy that Goldwing, and I'm going to ride it. I'm not going to do anything to it. I'm going to ride it. I'm going to enjoy it. That new Goldwing, it's got that crazy new front suspension.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had the
automatic transmission.
Yeah, I haven't had the chance to get out and ride that, but I mean, I'm probably going to ride the Goldwing. Holler at me next week because I'm going to be on my way back from California.
I'm putting Repsol graphics on the
yeah, Repsol graphics on the Goldwing.
Exactly, that's exactly what's going to happen with that.
The Woody Woodpecker sticker right on the side of the fenders there.
Absolutely, it's going to be a Nikki Hayden tribute on the Goldwing.
That'd be a fun time. So, all right. Well, it looks like that's going to be another show in the books. Lewis, I thank you for coming out and doing this with me today.
Anytime.
I thank y'all for listening. We are getting out there more and more on different channels. There's a video out. If you hadn't seen it yet, you can literally say, "Hey Siri, play the Daily Biker podcast." And for any of y'all now that are having your Siri through a loop, I'm sorry, but I had to at least one time. Appreciate you.
Hey everybody, this is Sean at White Lightning Harley Davidson. I want to thank you for listening to the Daily Biker Podcast. You can reach the podcast on Facebook or Instagram at The Daily Biker, or you can email the podcast at thedailybiker@gmail.com. Be sure to keep an eye on White Lightning Harley Davidson social media pages for the most up-to-date information on all our events and where you can find the boys.